The Daily Dribble.
Welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit, back here recording on another Monday night for the second installment of our NBL Focus show. Heard a lot of good feedback off the back of last week's debut show, so this week was feeling up and about for it. A lot of action's taken place over the course of the last week, but I mentioned on last week's show that this time around, I was going to do the first tackling of my NBL power rankings for the season. Now, as I said, there's been a lot of exciting games. There's one game to go tonight in round 4. The Illawarra Hawks playing host to the Brisbane Bullets. That one will be tipping off pretty well as I'm recording this one. But nevertheless, we've got a pretty good idea of what's been happening now over the course of the first couple of weeks. Thus, I thought I'd better see where the power lies within the league. So, looking forward to getting into that one momentarily. Guys, before we do so, though, a big shout out to the Spotlight Sports Network and The Cover, keeping us up to date, not only here in Australia, but abroad for all of our listeners. Certainly appreciate their continued support and showcasing not only us, but other content creators out there. As well, be sure to stay up to date with all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok for all the latest news from not only the NBL, but also the NBA. We dropped another hot little episode. The band was back together, Rowan Lee joining myself, to discuss all the action the other day from the opening few games from the NBA season. I tell you what, that started at breakneck pace. So if you are an NBA fan, be sure to check out our secondary episode during the week. Okay, let's get into it. A lot to get through today. I'm going to go through, as I said, my NBL power rankings. I'm sure for listeners out there, sure to cause a bit of debate. For the most part, it follows pretty similar to how the ladder stands at the moment, with a few notable little differences there. But I would love to hear what you guys think of this, where I went right, where I went wrong. Have I been unfairly cruel to any teams out there, or have I put a little bit of sauce on how some of these teams are going? So I would love to hear what you guys think. Okay, let's get into it. My number 10 on the power rankings, and the bottom seed is the Brisbane Bullets. Now, they've started their season 0-5. To be honest, their loss the other day against the Phoenix, they went down 89-88. Pretty much just summed up where their season's at thus far. They showed some really good signs, lots of positive stuff. They played Tyler Johnson off the bench, which I quite liked. Then they would Sobey, Baines, Tanner Krebs there in the starting lineup as well, just to kind of have a little more freedom and then have that spark plug as Johnson in that sixth man role. We've seen a lot of teams in the NBA look to utilise that more so. And it looked as if it was going to pay dividends early on. They were really in control for the most part of this game, for the first half anyway. Started to lose a little bit of it there in the third quarter. Fought back, and it looked as if they might come away with their first win of the season. Wasn't to be. The Phoenix getting up there by a point. And as I said, it sums up where their season's at. They're just lacking that killer instinct. And I think a big part of that comes back to Nathan Sobey. This season, he's down 6 points a game from what he was the season prior, averaging only 10 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Really is the kind of the engine behind this team. So I think if they're to actually, well, for me, it feels as if their season's on a knife edge. They play, as I said, the Illawarra Hawks tonight. My tip is that the Bullets get up in this one. But if they were to lose tonight and go 0-6, it really does. I think it pretty much condemns their season. Like they're pretty well done and dusted. Even with the play-in coming up in to start a season 0-6 and hope to make it to the finals, to the play-in tournament, it feels like possibly a bridge too far. They've been pretty decent on the offensive end. They've averaged 84.5 points. It's not any record-breaking pace, but it's just their defense that's lacking at the moment. So far against the Sydney Kings, they gave up 102 points and 100 points there, respectively, in their 2 matchups versus the reigning champs. They gave up 90 versus the Jack Jumpers in that OT game, 87 versus the Wildcats, and then 89 versus the Phoenix the other night. Like for me, that's their big drawback at the moment. The defensive side. If they are going to turn things around, things need to really ramp up on that side of it. They're going to get the point. I expect Sobey to pick up his output. Tyler Johnson's going to score. Baines can give you points. Tanner Krebs, as I said, Kadee. There's enough offensive firepower there, but as I said, lacking on the defensive end at the moment. So hopefully look for that to turn around very quickly, and hopefully starting tonight against the Illawarra Hawks. I'll move ahead to number 9. I've got Melbourne United. Now, they've started their season at 2-4. Comes off the back of their loss to the Sydney Kings yesterday. Again, a game in which it started quite promisingly. Up until halftime, it looked like we had a serious game on our hands. Blew out pretty quickly in the third quarter, but 2-4. It's an ordinary start for a team a lot of pundits out there had high hopes for. After that loss, head coach Dean Vickerman said that they were still looking to make roster changes. What are we? As I said, 4 rounds in. I think it's an 18-round season, if memory serves correctly. Still looking to find that piece to bring in. I think it certainly hurt them when Ariel Hukaporti went down in pre-season. It was already a tough ask trying to fill the shoes left by JLA there, Joe Lual Achul. It was never going to be easy. And I think what they had in Hukaporti looked really solid. Him going down has kind of only compounded their problems in the big man space. Isaac Humphries can do a shift, but compared to JLA, who was a damn near MVP candidate over the last couple of seasons, just feels as if that's where they're starting to fall behind a little bit. They're currently on a 3-game losing streak, but they've just lacked consistency so far. And in terms of a point differential, they have the second worst in the league there behind the Bullets. So the Bullets are at -46, Melbourne there at -45. Again, another team that really needs to pick up that defensive side of things. And I think that if they are to, that's probably going to be the catalyst for them turning their season around. That being said, it's not all doom and gloom. A standout has certainly been Xavier Rathan-Mays. Came over from the Illawarra Hawks during the offseason. Last season, he averaged 10.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists. This season, he's up to a tick over 16 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, a bit over a steal a game, whilst also going 45% from 3. I tell you what, you'd be absolutely delighted with that output from him. Likewise, Rajon Tucker, after a very slow start to the season, he's starting to find his feet a little more so. His scoring and intensity is certainly going to be key. To turn things around. As I said, they've lacked consistency. They've lacked a little bit of energy for the most part as well. And I think that's what Tucker can provide. And hopefully that intensity will actually carry over to Chris Goulding. He's having his lowest scoring season since 2011. Now, he's again, kind of the barometer for this team. The lowest scoring season, as I said, since 2011 when he was with the Gold Coast Blaze, who, as a lot of fans out there would know, aren't even a franchise anymore. Averaging 13.7 points a game this season. And as I said, I'm just hoping that intensity that Tucker's starting to find, Rathan-Mays there as well, hopefully it just permeates through there to Goulding. He just hasn't found his feet yet. I think their next 3 games, they face the Hawks, Wildcats and Taipans, will probably be quite telling for their season as to whether they get things back on track or whether it's all to crumble around them quite early in the piece. I'll move ahead to number 8, the Illawarra Hawks. Now, they've started 1-4 to the season. A lot of people might be questioning as to why I had them above Melbourne United. I guess probably a big point for this was the fact that during the week they signed former New Zealand Breakers import Peyton Silva to the squad. He'll fill the role that was left by injury due to Justin Robinson going down. For the Breakers last season, Silva averaged 12 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Really solid stats. But for me, the big thing that he will actually bring to this squad is a bit of creativity and a bit of complementary ball handling for Tyler Harvey. They just seem to be lacking on that offensive side. And for Harvey at the moment, he's well down on his stats. 14.5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Yet only a couple of seasons ago in 2020, he was averaging 20 points a game. So they'd certainly be hoping that he can find his rhythm. find his feet, find that scoring that we've come to know and love from Tyler Harvey. But I think just with Silva coming into the squad, it should hopefully alleviate a bit of that pressure on his shoulders and just enable him to, I guess, play a little more free. And that's when Tyler Harvey looks his best. When he's free, lets it fly. He is must-watch TV. So certainly hope that aids in what the Hawks are doing there. Certainly like what I've seen so far in George King off the bench. He's provided a real spark, dropping 14.5 points a game, shooting the three ball at 46.5% off the bench. Now, again, I spoke about a couple of moments ago, energy guys off the bench. And I tell you what, he is one of them. They need someone who can kind of steer the ship when Harvey and Cole are off the court. And he's that guy. As I said, they faced Brisbane momentarily. And at the time, I'm recording now at 6:45 on Monday night. This game's set to tip off at 7:30. So their game against Brisbane tonight. They then face Brisbane again in a couple of days' time, followed by Melbourne United to round out their next 3 games. I think, to be honest, I think they'd really be hoping this is a real chance for them to capitalise and get a couple of wins on the board. They'd probably be hoping to nab at least 2 of these. And I think, again, another team, you don't want to fall too far behind the pace. There's, a really strong 6 or 7 teams. And if they start to lose touch over the next couple of games, it's going to be very, very hard to claw back in that back half of the season. So I think you'd be expecting to hopefully get one, if not both, against Brisbane, and then try and take one against Melbourne United. Go 2 out of 3. That gets your season there. What are you looking at there? 3-7 looks considerably healthier than 1-4. So I think that should be the goal for them over the next week or so. I'll move ahead. Number 7. I've got the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Started the season at 3-3 here on a 2-game win streak as we speak, and that has certainly coincided with the increased intensity of Mitch Creek. In their 1-point win the other day over the Bullets, which I mentioned a moment ago, he dropped 31 points along with 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and kind of displayed the form that I thought, well, I put him in my top 3 for MVP voting. And it's games like this as to why I did that. Ryan Brockhoff now, Trey Kell, Zoe Chi coming back into the team. It just feels like it's all starting to click a little bit better than it was looking a week or 2 ago for the Phoenix there. I certainly think they're going to be a team to be feared. Now they've got their full complement of guys together. They start building that on-court chemistry. They're going to be a tough game every night. And I think certainly a big shout out to Alan Williams and Cole Adnam, the big and the small there, been absolutely huge whilst these other names have been out of the squad. For Adnam, he's had a career best scoring season thus far, dropping 15.2 points, mainly off the bench there, 3 and a bit rebounds, 4.5 assists. And how's this? A fun stat, as I was doing my research for this week's episode, I love all these little fun facts and little trivia points. It's not too often you see a stat like this. So, Cole Adnam this season is going 35% from 2, yet shooting 42% from 3, which, if you're a hardcore NBL fan out there, you soak in a lot of stats and things of the kind. It's not too often that you see a player's 3-point shooting percentage 7 percentage points greater than their 2-point field goal percentage. So just a little fun fact I saw there that I quite enjoyed. But as I said, I think, as they get that squad all together now, that chemistry is building, I don't see any reason as to why they couldn't charge up the standings, especially if this is the Mitch Creek they're going to get night in and night out. As I said, I still believe at the moment he's going to be a name that's kind of up in and around the MVP talk when the season's over. And they certainly look best when he's attacking the rim, should I say, and looking to really handle the rock, really take things on his shoulders. So certainly look out for him in the MVP standings. Number 6, I've got the Adelaide 36ers. Now, they've started the season 2-1. A lot of people might be kind of, starting to kind of think, what's this guy talking about? Starting to dismiss what I've got to say here. But the reason as to why I've got them 6th, they're a bit of a team. They live by the 3-ball, die by the 3-ball. In game 1, they went 5 of 21, 24% there. Game 2, they went 12 of 30, going 40% from the field. And then in game 3, 14 of 35, going 40% again. For me, they're just a team. They're not going to die wondering, that's for sure. And the analogy was used in the broadcast the other night against the Sydney Kings. They're essentially the NBA or the equivalent of the Golden State Warriors here in the NBL. For me, I think they certainly play that way. As I said, run and gun, live and die by the three ball, a heap of fun to watch. But I guess the reason as to why I had them so low was the fact they got blown out in game one. 25 points by the Jack Jumpers off that high, beating Phoenix, that stellar road trip to the US they had. It all kind of, I guess there was a bit of a needle put in their balloon in the form of the Jack Jumpers. So, they've gone on now. They've beaten the Hawks by 10, just scraped over the line against the Kings by 4 points in what was an absolutely thrilling game the other night. But I think my only concern is the ISO ball fact. There were times the other night that when the ball was pinging around, they were unstoppable. They were Mitchie McCarron leading that. His vision and playmaking is second to none within the league. And I think I made this point last week. When they get that ball popping with the players they've got, like this starting five, Mitchie McCarron, Rob Franks, Cleveland, Randall, Daniel Johnson there as your starting five, it's going to be a tough ask to stop each and every night. So I think the key for them is just making sure that they don't rely solely on the three ball, because if it's not dropping, they sometimes look a little bit one-dimensional. And I think just with the caliber of players they've got, getting them touches on the ball, keeping them involved in the offense is going to be key for them. And undoubtedly the key on the offensive side is going to be Craig Randall. Across 3 games so far, I know, small sample size, but so far he's averaging 23.5 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, going 41% from 3. I just made the phrase, live by the 3, die by the 3. This guy is the epitome of that. He was pulling up from Steph Curry range, Dame Lillard range, no worries whatsoever. Didn't hesitate. I tell you what, this guy, I said Rajon Tucker was going to be, I think, my most must-watch player heading into the season. If I had to change it now, I would say Craig Randall. It was just absolutely ridiculous the confidence he has in his abilities. And he's making them too, so you can't fault him. Keep going back to the well. But yeah, again, as to the reason I had them so low, that blowout to the Jack Jumpers, and I guess just the sample size. A lot of these teams we're seeing 5, 6, 7 games. For the 36ers thus far, it's only 3. So after the Jack Jumpers demolished them, they've still got a little bit of proving to do. And I'm sure over the course of the next week or two, they start getting some more, double game weeks there. There's a good chance they'll be up the standings next time we do this, no doubt. And there's certainly come season's end, displayed by their win over the reigning champs, the Kings, the other day, 92-88. They're certainly going to be in and around the mix come the end of the season. Okay, let's move to a team that's been in and around the mark the last pretty well 25 years. The Perth Wildcats. They've started their season at 3-2, lost 2 on the bounce now. They went down to Melbourne United, 84-81. And then got absolutely demolished against the Jack Jumpers on Saturday night, 103-72. I was fortunate enough to be at this game, and it was just phenomenal how quickly it blew out. It really was, a pretty even game. Through the first half, you could say the Jack Jumpers started to turn it on a little bit towards the back end of the second quarter. But third quarter, it was all she wrote very, very quickly, and a lot of sloppy, uncharacteristic turnovers that forced it. There was a player, I can't remember the actual names play for play, but the Jack Jumpers hit a 3, got this steal on the inbounds and hit another 3. And just like that, I think it was, an 8-9 point lead, jumped to a 14-15 point lead. Very hard to claw back from that point. And to be honest, outside of Cotton, they looked quite stagnant. If Cotton didn't have the ball, they just lacked creativity, to be fair. And I think for me, moving forward, that's my worry. They're so reliant on Cotton, and rightly so. He's one of, if not the best player within the league, and has been for the course of the last couple of seasons. But if he's not having a great game, or if he's away, who's going to be the guy that steps up for them? They've got heaps of quality players there. Norton, Blanchfield, Manick, they're coming over from the US. Webster, Travers, Wagstaff, a who's who of NBL talent, should I say? But it's hard to say who's going to be that number 2 guy, or on any given night, if Cotton's not there, be the number 1 guy. To be honest, I'd like to see them maybe look to use Travers a little bit more, especially as he looks to transition into the NBA, build his confidence. I think he's more than capable of handling the ball and taking on more of an offensive output. He has seen a considerable uptick in points since last season, but I think he's still got the capability to do more. So going forward, that is my concern. What do they do if Cotton's not there? And who's going to step up and be that number 2 guy? Manic could certainly do it. He's displayed a good inside and outside game thus far. But I think going forward, that's certainly something they're going to have to iron out and quickly. Like that game the other night, I don't know. As I said, what was it? 31 points? 31 points to Jack Jumpers won by. I think they're going to be fine. I think this game was maybe a small hiccup in their season. It's hard to say whether it's a testament to how well the Jack Jumpers played or kind of reflects on how poorly Perth played. Probably a combination between the two. But again, I think a minor hiccup. They're still a powerhouse of the competition. 5th on my power rankings at the moment. But with the talent they have and Bryce Cotton at the helm, there's no doubts in my mind that they'll be in and around the mix as well. Now, a team I certainly didn't expect to be in and around the mix, and I think I might have predicted them for maybe bottom of the league. Yeah, memory serves correctly. I think I did have them bottom of the league. But the New Zealand Breakers, now they've started their season. Our friends across the ditch, they've started their season at 4-2, to the surprise of not only myself but many in the NBL community out there. And that, to be honest, they've just done a superb job. And really, it comes down to the defensive end. I mentioned teams that were lacking on that defensive end. Brisbane Bullets. Who else did I say? Did I say Melbourne? Melbourne. Yep, absolutely. But they've really made it a staple mark of their opening 6 games to really lock down that end. They gave up 65 points versus the Jack Jumpers, 62 points versus the Hawks, 64 points versus the Taipans. And offensively, they're just getting enough production. They don't have any world-beat out-and-out scorers, but it's kind of done by committee. Rob Lowe has been a revelation this season. I tell you what, he's been great for my fantasy team as well over the course of the last couple of weeks. He's averaging 8.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, playing 19 minutes a game now, which is a huge uptick from what he was producing and the game time he was getting last season. But for me, probably the most exciting player within this squad is Jarrell Brantley. Now, he has been an excitement machine thus far, and certainly in their win against the Jack Jumpers, he was undoubtedly the catalyst for that. 13 points, 4.5 rebounds. Just a runner and gunner, though, and certainly brings the highlight plays, brings the energy. And to be fair, the only concern I have, because outside of everything else, they're looking fantastic. My only concern would be the output of NBL next star Rayan Rupert thus far. He's looked a little bit out of sorts after having quite a hot start to the Blitz. He hasn't quite found his form in the regular season as of yet. So probably moving forward, that's the one thing I think they'd be looking to hopefully rectify, hopefully get him a little more confidence, minutes on the board, points on the board. And bar that, I think they're in really good shape at the minute and certainly have outperformed my thoughts for them this season, as with many out there as well. So I certainly hope that they can truck on their merry way. Number 3, the Tassie Jack Jumpers. I tell you what a turnaround it's been. They are currently 4-3 to start the season. This comes off the back of a 4-game win streak in which they've knocked off the Brisbane Bullets, Adelaide 36ers, Melbourne United, and then finally on Saturday night, the Perth Wildcats. Now, again, another point that people might be questioning as to why I've got them above the Breakers, despite the Breakers' superior record at this point in time. And the fact they're a few positions lower there. I just think this turnaround, as I said, a 4-game win streak, the brand of ball they're playing is completely different compared to the first 3 games. It was really looking quite, to be fair, higgledy-piggledy. They looked all sorts of out of ideas. Just no go-to scorer. To be honest, lacked confidence, especially Matty Kenyon in shooting the ball. But over the last couple of weeks, he has been a revelation, now openly stepping into threes. And I tell you what, it makes a world of difference when the opposition has to guard him. It frees up our players like Josh Majette, Milton Doyle, these kind of go-getter, bucket getters. So just having him as a threat as well has been huge. The news as well, I give them a big bonus. During the week, they re-signed with the heart and soul really, of the team, or last week, should I say, re-signed Jack McVeigh to a 2-year contract extension. That'll see him through till 2025 with us. And to be fair, if there's any guy you want to lock up, he's the one. It's not only what he brings on the court in terms of his output, but it's to be fair, it's what he does team chemistry wise. It's what he does community wise. The way he gets the fans engaged. As I said, him and Scott Roth, they really kind of exemplify what the Tassie Jack Jumper brand's all about. And as I said, the heart and soul, no doubt. So I give them big ups for locking him down for a further 2 years. As I said, first couple of games, they were looking to feel that hole of Josh Adams. It was going to be no easy feat. And over that first couple of games, they weren't able to do so. Since that time, Milton Doyle has really, really elevated his game and looks somewhat JA reminiscent there. So that's fantastic, and loving what he's doing. Majed as well, back to his playmaking best, a double-double the other night, 10 assists. The inbounds lob there to Milton Doyle is one for the absolute highlight books. If you haven't seen it, be sure to check out the highlights from the Jack Jumpers and Perth game the other night. But that was one of the better NBL plays I've seen over recent memory. That was, to be honest, I'd had a couple of beers at that time, so it might have only increased my excitement, but I was absolutely on my feet for that one. Incredible stuff. Their win the other night, that game against Perth, 103-72. It was a franchise record for the most points they've scored at home in their young history. So a fantastic display there, a fantastic night for the franchise. Again, tied in perfectly with the re-signing of Jack McVeigh. On a 4-game win streak, I tell you what, the ants are coming, so beware. They are looking really good at the minute, and they're still waiting on Clint Steindl, Will Magnay to come back. So there's still ammo there to come in for this squad. Number 2, I've got the Cairns Taipans. Started the season at 4-2. To be fair, as I said last week, I'll bleed green for the Jack Jumpers, but they are my absolute darling team. Very, very similar to how the Cleveland Cavaliers were last season for myself in the NBA. Just that team, you can't help but smile when they win. You love the way they go about their ball. The only blemish was their loss to the Breakers the other night, 68-64. But outside of that, they've been nothing short of exceptional. Keanu Pinder, tell you what, he is a bona fide superstar. He is really just in this season, and even in the back end of last season, grown into an absolute superstar of the competition. Would certainly be probably one of the picks for not only most improved player at this point, but also MVP. Just for the fact, last season, 11 points, 7.5 rebound, 1 assist a game. Yet this season, he's already up to 17 points a game, 10.5 rebounds, nearly 3 assists, plus a block and a steal a game. So I tell you what, hats off to Adam Ford there, giving him a bigger role and letting him kind of grow and flourish. He's taken those reins and absolutely run with it up until this point. So I think it's been just fantastic seeing him grow and develop so far. Likewise, getting fantastic contributions out of DJ Hogue, Majok Deng, Sammy Wardenberg there, just to name a few. They've got lots of really solid players, and I think that's the key. They're not carrying anyone as such. And well, what are we now? They're 6 games in. The last 3 games they've been out with who was meant to be their star player, Tajir McCall. He started the season a little bit slowly, a lot of turnovers, a lot of uncharacteristic errors. Hopefully when he comes back into the team on his return from injury, he just kind of relaxes a little bit, doesn't try to do too much. Sometimes he tries to play at almost too much of a breakneck pace, which, sometimes to his detriment. He's going a million miles an hour, and his brain and his body can't seem to keep up. So I certainly wish him a speedy recovery, as I said the other week. But just hope when he comes back into the fold, it doesn't disrupt what they've got building there, because I think certainly Pinder's the guy that they need to play through. And just to be honest, I used the analogy the other week that they're very reminiscent to how the Sacramento Kings played under Luke Walton. Run and gun. Not a whole heap of defense, but just run and gun, a heap of fun to watch. I certainly hope, I can watch as many of their games as possible, because behind the Jack Jumpers, as I said, they've been the team I've most been excited to see, just with that brand of basketball they play. And, what are we, 6 games in? There's enough of a sample size there to suggest that I'm a believer. And I think After a couple of lean seasons, I really hope that they flourish and can make a bit of a run at things this season. I certainly don't think they're in that championship tier, but they're, I think, going to turn some heads in a spit that you wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs. I don't think that'd be a tough out, that's for sure. But last and certainly not least, I'll move ahead to my number one team there on my power rankings. The reigning defending champions of the NBL, the Sydney Kings. They've started their season at 5-2, and to be fair, it's they went down the other night to the 36ers in what was an absolutely barnstorming game. But outside of that, they've just been as solid as a rock. It's kind of steady as she goes at the moment. And I made this point the other week. They've done such a phenomenal job in replenishing the caliber of players they lost last offseason. MVP Jalen Adams, Ian Clark, Jarrell Martin. They were some heavy hitters within the NBL. You lose the reigning MVP. It's big shoes to fill. But so far from guys like Tim Saws there, their new big man Justin Simon, and in particular Derek Walton Jr., I think they've filled those gaps left really well. Especially Walton. So far, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal a game, and he's going 52% from the field. He kind of feels not quite a carbon copy. I don't want to say that or give him that much praise yet, but feels very similar to Bryce Cotton. Has got that ability, brings his players into the game, might start slow, but then can really cook. And he did that in the third quarter the other night against the 36ers. I think this season for the Kings, they've got a lot of competition. This is one of the most even leagues I've seen in recent memory. As I said, there's probably 5, 6, 7 deep that could credibly make a bit of a run at things. But I have no doubts in my mind that when we get to the pointy end of things, they're going to be in and around the mark once again. They've got the Cairns Taipans, Breakers, and the Illawarra Hawks upcoming in their 3 games. For them, they'd certainly be hoping to go 3-3 and just put a little bit of breathing space between them and the chasing pack. But I've loved everything I've seen so far. Really kind of that never say die attitude. They looked, Adelaide looked like they were going to run across them the other night. They did end up getting the win. But I tell you what, they especially in that first quarter, they showed a lot of fight to hang with Adelaide. Xavier Cooks as well. What a season he's having. Just continues to get better. And again, another player, I know he spent a bit of time in Summer League with the NBA there. He's certainly a guy who would, I'm sure, make a big impact over in the league there. But I reckon for a lot of NBL opposition, they'd be certainly hoping he makes the move as well, because he's terrorising teams to start this season. But the Sydney Kings there take out my top spot. So what I'll do, guys, there, I will recap my top 10. As I said, I'd love to hear what you think, where I got things right, where I got it wrong, and just we'll hash it out together. So starting from 10 through to 1, I had the Brisbane Bullets, Melbourne United, the Illawarra Hawks, the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, the Adelaide 36ers. We head into the top 4 now. The New Zealand Breakers, the Tassie Jack Jumpers, the Cairns Taipans take out the number 2 spot. And for my first power ranking to the season, the reigning defending champions of the NBL, the Sydney Kings, take out the top spot there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed listening to this one. I had a blast doing it, had a blast assessing all 10 teams thus far into the early part of their season. This is certainly something I'll look to do, in a month or so time, just touch base, see what movements actually taken place over the course of these power rankings. I'm going to probably wrap this up now. I'm looking forward to watching the last game of round 4, the Illawarra Hawks facing the Brisbane Bullets, 2 teams that are certainly itching to get a win on the board. I'm sure as you tune into this game will have come and gone. But I certainly hope you guys are enjoying everything that the NBL has had to offer over the course of the first couple of weeks. I'm absolutely enthralled. As I said, all these teams, there's so much to like about all of them, and it's shaping up to be one of the biggest and best seasons yet. Guys, be sure to stay up to date with everything Daily Dribble to get your basketball news, whether it's NBA, whether it's NBL. I'll be back recording this weekend on our NBA show with Ro Hancock and Lee Hancock. Certainly looking forward to bringing that one to you then. Till then, though, guys, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.